let's talk about the monster scaling, which we've kind of alluded to a little bit. How does everyone feel about how powerful the monsters are relative to you?
Seems like they're
Tanks.
dying faster, that's for sure. I've noticed
Yeah.
that. But it also feels like, I like to play tanks, so I feel like I'm kind of getting hit a little bit harder, it feels like, than before, but they are dying faster, so.
I think the fact that they're hitting harder is good because it makes tanks feel more relevant in that content. Um, I think that they feel like they're dying too fast though. Like a Doom Reaper just shouldn't look like it's made of tissue paper when a couple of competent DPS go and smack it. You know, that feels bad to me. But the fact that you need a tank, or at least like not need a tank, but that it's a valuable asset is that's
Yeah, last night we were doing Legendary Reaper 8 Skulls with no tank and no healer with just 5 of us. And I can tell you that before the balance pass, I wouldn't have been doing R8s without a tank and healer. Yeah, that's me. That's where I
Mhm.
am. I know some people would, but
I would agree that I think my experience is that things die faster and I die faster. Both of those things seem to be true. Uh, and I am probably running about a skull or two higher than I used to,
yeah.
generally. Um, there's a little bit of variance in that still. Like I do find I do still find Doom Reapers to be a little bit of a problem if you don't have someone who can take a hit or three. Not necessarily a tank, but someone with more hit points than a caster or like a
someone chunky.
yeah. You need a little bit of beef to occupy the Doom Reaper while you kill it a little bit. Um, as opposed to in before, like that was less of an issue because you could just meld your way out of everything. Uh, so that's a little bit of that experience, but I
I
do find that stuff is
genuinely
dying
love that
faster.
Meld is gone. Meld being gone makes me so happy for the game. Same as Dire Charge being locked into a tree instead of being a feat that everyone has to take. It's so much more fun from a building perspective. But I guess that's the next thing that we're talking about.
Um, sort of. I mean, we can touch on that now. That's totally fine.
PJ, before we do that, I
Yeah.
just wanted to put my little 2 cents in regarding monster scaling.
Yes, please.
One of the things I noticed in Kasplat is that where we would do like 4 skulls, we've been consistently been able to do 6 skulls,
Yeah.
and I think that's where I've noticed it.
Yeah, I would agree. And I'm not sure what the best answer is, but I think Reaper scaling, I think the baseline is actually pretty good, right? Like if you're an elite R1 normal hard stuff, like that's fine. I think the higher skulls is where things are off for me right now.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what the best solution is at the moment cuz I'm actually pretty happy with how hard things hit.
Yeah.
I don't want the answer to make this content more difficult. Monsters just one shot everybody, right? Like that has never been challenging to me.
Yeah, it's
Um,
not fun. It just changes the build meta. It doesn't actually
right.
make the game more challenging.
I'm also not sure that I want them to just add more hit points to everything because everything being stacks of hit points, I think is also not necessarily fun.
That's boring. It's just boring to sit there and beat on something,
Right.
for 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
I think some stuff could have more HP though. Like I think
Yeah.
bruiser type enemies like Doom Reapers and those the enemy heavy frontline guys could have more HP and then keep like the casters and the rangers at about the same level. And then you've got a bit of variance in like what you can target for your big hits.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's a start. I think Reapers across the board, and this was true before the past too. Like I think Reapers generally needed more hit points. Maybe not Doom Reapers before, but definitely now. Like those I think need to be a little tougher.
If a
than
Doom
the
Reaper
Tar.
had twice as many hit points, it would be fine. And
Maybe.
um,
I think
but like
there's
Vengeance Reapers being a bit fragile is kind of fun because you got to play around them, you know.
that's true. Like if I do hope when they I think they need to relook at Reaper, which I think is kind of on the docket anyways.
Yeah.
But I think like looking at the Reaper toughness just in general would be a good place. Hey, while we're doing that, I would love it if Reapers would just drop the little crafting bits for you know the you turn in a Reaper an item with a Reaper enhancement and you get a bit that you can then apply to Reaper enhancement with something else. I would love it if just Reapers dropped them kind of like token fragments
I love that idea.
or
But
scrolls.
have them auto gather, please.
Sure, yeah.
Even if the drop chance for them was crazy low, just so it didn't feel
Mhm.
like you were at the whims of the loot table.
Yeah. Well, also it would make it more meaningful to do stuff at higher levels, right, as opposed to farming low level crap. Anyways, that aside,
Yeah, maybe if Dooms had a higher chance than
Mhm.
other Reapers, you
Mhm.
know, pretty
Absolutely.
good.
Orange ones drop them a higher rate. Reds drop higher. Perfect. I think Reaper needs more Reapers for starters. Just I think
Like more variants of Reapers, you mean?
yeah, and I've harped on this too. Like we've had the same base set of champions for so long. The Reapers are there. Like I don't necessarily need them all to be in the wild at the same time, but change up the Reapers, the Reaper suites and the champion suites a little more often, just to like put some of that liveliness and change and variability in. Like I think that would add a lot to just play in general.
Yeah.
But I kind of wonder if some better solutions might be something along the lines of having Reaper also reduce like helpless damage, not just base damage, but how much extra damage you do to helpless stuff might be an option. I also wonder if Reaper mobs had kind of more of an ablative defense. Let's say like the first time you hit them, you do less damage, but the second time they get hit, they take more damage. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but it was just kind of something I was toying with in my head. Like, does this make the balance better and more fun, but not just like they hit harder or they have a whole bunch more hit points, right? Like, we need something that makes them tougher.
Well,
That's not
some
just those
Reapers
two things.
some of the Reapers work like this. So like the Famine Reaper, the longer you leave it up, the more dangerous it is. Like the Carnage Reaper, if it's wailing on you for too long, it makes you vulnerable and you take more damage.
Right.
The only problem with those is that they're essentially made of tissue paper up against real DPS players, where a competent DPS can make them vanish. It's almost like a magic trick. And I think that's like sure, those are top end players who are doing that, but they're doing it at the highest difficulty the game has to offer, so
Right.
it shouldn't really be happening. You know, if they're doing that in R1, fine. Someone has chosen to do their relative easier difficulty. It makes sense that they can do it more easily. But if you're at the top end of the game of what the game can offer you, and you know, if you go into a push raid and you see a Reaper, that's the least scary thing in the raid.
It's true. Yeah. Other than a Vengeance or a Doom, like you see a Reaper and it's like, oh, no problem, right?
Oh, well, you see a Doom in a push raid, and everyone's so jacked for DPS that
Yeah.
that is the lowest HP thing in there.
Yeah. So I think that's something that I would like to see them figure out is how does this content be more challenging, maybe with some increase in hit points, at least for the mobs, not necessarily for the bosses, but not just they have more hit points and or they do more damage.
I kind of suspect that they're going to give us this lull, like, okay, things are a little bit on the easier side for now, but we're going to drive you into the dirt when Isle of Dread comes out and the level cap raises. It's just what I suspect. I could be wrong. I've been
Okay
wrong
with that.
before.
I think you're on
Watch
the money
it.
there.
Hey, here's legendary content. Here's legendary ward back. Like,
I mean,
come
you
on.
think about when the level cap raised to 25, how hard epics were at first for us,
Mhm.
and then when the game went legendary, a lot of the community struggled with legendary elites for a while, and I think I suspect we're going to see a similar phenomenon when the level cap raises again.
Yep. Hopefully, we'll see some stuff that's more tactical challenge based than damage and hit points. Because I've played that game in DDO, and it's
Do
one of the
think you're on the
reasons.
money
It's one
with
of the
the
reasons why
suite of
I never
Reapers.
bought into Legendary Shroud. As a great raid, is because the difficulty, the challenge there was don't get hit, and I didn't find that fun because I got hit a lot.
I do think you're on the money there with having a suite of Reapers that changes even seasonally, where you can have like these 3 months you have these Reapers, and then next season we'll have a different selection that you have to interact with tactically differently. That'll be fun, especially with the champs as well.
I would be fine. Like, I don't know if they can do it, but even if they just like, here's all the champs we've ever created at once, like, fine, right? Like, the champion suites that were on hardcore were great. They were fun. They were different. They shook things up, right? And I want more of that on live. And they put the one on live for like what, a week and a half, something
The
like that.
value to me of a rotating roster is if they're all on at the same time at higher levels, you either don't bother learning what they are and you crunch through them, or you have to learn all of them by rote and know what all of them are. Whereas if you have a smaller pool that's seasonal, you have to learn a fresh thing. Learning a fresh thing is sort of more fun, and it's especially if it's a smaller batch, then it's feasible that you can learn that fresh thing. Whereas if
True.
it's a huge roster, you can't really learn that.
Or maybe you have to change your build a little bit, like do little
Yeah.
fine tuning tweaks. Yeah, no, I think you're not wrong there. Yeah. So
Like it was meta defining for hardcore season 4 that they had those things that would just insta kill you with
Yeah.
the fear and the diseases and stuff. You had to build around that with your whole build, and I think that's cool.
it was fun.